This is an example of the Job Matters Lab solution. So this is to try and gather some information using variables on several different screens and display all that information on a final screen. So in this application, we are trying to think about what are the things that matter for a job besides a paycheck. So this would be the first screen here where you type in your geographical location preference. So let's run this. Here we go. And let's say I care about it's warm. And then I go to the next screen down here. And how about my coworkers? Let's say I care that I want them to be honest and trustworthy. That's most important. And then my work environment, let's say I want to move around. I get restless otherwise. Choose that. And then this is the summary. It's warm, coworkers honest and trustworthy. I get to physically move around. That I could restart and go back to the beginning and overwrite and type in some other things. Now if we were to look at the let's see here. The lab part of it, the code that you're given as the starting point, the interface is pretty much the same. But over here, first thing at the top, you need to put your group member names in there. And anywhere where there's these 3 asterisks on the next line, you need to put 1 or more lines of code. So here you have to declare the variables that are used to store the information. For example, on this first screen, whatever you type in here needs to be stored into a variable when you go on to the next screen. So when you click on this button, which is button for question 1, when you click on it, then here is where you'd want to store the response for question 1. So you'd need to get the text from here and store it into the variable that you declared up here. And so forth for the others. For each of the questions, you store the response. Here, when we get to the screen 2, you store the response from question 2, and you store that into the variable that you will have declared for that. And then question 3 is a little bit different, because in question 3, we've got these radio buttons. And radio buttons, only one at a time can be selected. So when any of those 4 radio buttons get selected, the code down here is what gets triggered for those. So if this top one gets selected, then this is the code that gets triggered, and this is for the second radio button and so forth. So for all of these, depending on which one is the one that gets clicked upon, it's going to execute the code down here. And so for each one of these, you want to store this text into the variable used for question 3. Lastly, when we go to the summary screen down here, what we need to do is we need to say, all right, I now have these 3 variables, and I want to take these 3 variables and the contents that's stored into those variables, and I want to store them into these 3 text boxes here for the 3 questions to display the summary. So you not only go to the summary screen, but you also have to display the contents from those variables into these 3 text windows. So that's what you would do right here at this point. Also see the description given on the lab page.